In theory, the Olympic Games are presented as a unique opportunity to boost the economy of the host city or country. However, the reality is much more complex, and often the results are far from expected. Despite enormous expectations, experts agree that it's extremely difficult to quantify the real economic impact of these events. The profitability of the Olympic Games has been at the center of a debate that has led several cities, such as Budapest, Stockholm, and Krakow, to withdraw their bids in recent years due to high costs and financial uncertainty associated with hosting. So let's analyze this situation better. Let's begin. Since the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, most editions have faced significant deficits. A study published in the journal Nature in 2021 revealed that only 3 games since then have been profitable: Los Angeles 1984, Atlanta 1996, and Sydney 2000. This study emphasizes that the revenue generated from sponsors, television rights, and other sources is mostly retained by the International Olympic Committee, IOC, leaving host cities with a minimal share of the profits. This means local governments largely depend on ticket sales, local sponsorships, and merchandising, which is insufficient to cover the colossal costs of organizing the games. The costs of organizing and constructing sports facilities are, in themselves, an enormous economic burden that often skyrockets far beyond initial projections. Tokyo 2020, for example, recorded losses close to $6.8 billion, while other editions such as London 2012 and Rio 2016 also significantly exceeded their budgets. These cost overruns are not the exception but the rule in almost all editions, whether due to erroneous initial calculations, inevitable inflation in construction costs, or the tendency to make overly optimistic budgets to win public favor. Paris 2024, although presenting itself as a more austere edition compared to its predecessors, is not exempt from these financial challenges. The organization of the Games has estimated a total expenditure of around $9.7 billion, a figure that already exceeds initial forecasts and could still increase. Although a significant portion of the funding is expected to come from the private sector, the public sector has also had to contribute about $3.258 billion, mainly for works that will impact communities in the long term, beyond the Games. Despite these measures, the economic benefits of the Games remain uncertain, and many experts doubt that Paris will achieve profitability. A study by the University of Oxford estimated that, since 1960, the average cost of hosting the Olympic Games has tripled, mainly due to the growing infrastructure demands these events require. This cost not only includes the construction of new sports facilities but also the modernization of existing infrastructure, planning, hiring consultants, event organization, and operational and security costs. These expenses are difficult to justify when the post-Games economic benefits are, in many cases, temporary and limited. Clara Inés Pardo, PhD in economics from the Universidad del Rosario in Colombia, points out that although the Olympic Games can generate an economic boost, the long-term benefits are dubious. Tourism, for example, can be negatively affected by the crowds, high prices, and security concerns that accompany these events, which could deter regular visitors and result in a net decrease in tourism. The case of Tokyo 2020 is particularly illustrative of the challenges faced by host cities. Originally, the Games costs were projected to be $7.3 billion, but the global COVID-19 pandemic forced the event to be postponed and costs to be revised upwards, with estimates ranging from $13 billion to $28 billion. This cost overrun has become a constant in organizing the Olympic Games, where initial budgets rarely reflect the final reality. Recent Olympic Games editions, including London 2012 and Rio 2016, have been marked by significant cost overruns. London 2012, for example, was one of the most expensive games in history, with a 76% overrun compared to initial estimates. Despite attempts to repurpose the built infrastructure, such as the London Olympic Stadium being converted into the home of West Ham United Football Club, the cost of maintaining and operating these facilities remains a financial challenge for cities. Rio 2016 is another example of how cost overruns can severely affect a city's economy. Brazil, amid a political and economic crisis, faced a 352% cost overrun, and many of the facilities built for the games were abandoned shortly after the event. The revenue generated was insufficient to cover the costs, leaving the city with significant debt. Given this scenario, some experts, such as Victor Matheson and Rob Bad, have proposed creating permanent Olympic venues to reduce costs and the financial burden the games represent for host cities. According to them, the cost of organizing the Olympic Games routinely exceeds any reasonably expected return, and any positive net benefit must result from increased economic activity during the Games, something not always supported by objective economic analyses. What do you think? If you liked or found the video helpful, give it a like or subscribe if you prefer. We upload videos weekly. Until next time.